Tannenberg. It was the moment an empire walked into its own destruction. Over the Masurian lakes, the landscape seemed calm. But in August 1914, this labyrinth of water and marsh stood between two great armies. Germany planned to defeat France before Russia was ready. It could not fight a war on two fronts. The Schlieffen Plan assumed Russia would need at least 6 weeks to fully mobilize. Nearly 90% of the German army was sent west. In the east, only the German 8th Army remained to defend East Prussia. Just 150,000 men facing the Russian Empire. The German army was badly outnumbered. With France under severe pressure, Paris urgently called on Russia to open a second front. In response, the Russian army advanced before its mobilization was complete. The Russian invasion split into 2 columns. The First Army under Fall von Rennenkampf advanced from the north. The Second Army under Alexander Samsonov moved from the south. The two generals hated each other. In 1905, after the Battle of Mukden, they had reportedly fought a fistfight at a railway station. The bitterness never disappeared. Coordination between the armies was almost non-existent. The result was chaos. Russian trains could reach the border, but their railway gauge was wider than the German tracks. The trains could not enter German territory. Horse-drawn wagons could not keep up with the marching armies. Supply lines collapsed. Field bakeries and hospitals had not even been established. Russian infantry marched 25 to 30 kilometers a day along sandy roads. Many soldiers entered the war already exhausted and hungry. Some survived by eating raw crops from the fields. The Russian advance had begun as a logistical disaster. Communication became another catastrophe. There was no time to lay telegraph cables. The Russian army relied on radio. Many officers avoided encryption. They found the code tables too complicated, or they simply did not have them. Messages were transmitted without encryption. German signals officers could hear everything. When Max Hoffmann read the intercepts, he could hardly believe them. Russian units were reporting their positions, their direction of march, even their lack of food. German reconnaissance aircraft took off to verify the information. From the air, Ettrich Tauber pilots photographed the front. They confirmed something extraordinary. Between the two Russian armies, there was a gap of nearly 100 kilometers. Germany could now hear the enemy and see him. Nature divided the Russian armies. The Masurian lakes formed a maze of marshes and water. Meanwhile, panic spread across East Prussia. German civilians fled westward from the advancing Cossack cavalry. German soldiers were defending their homes. Their morale was high. Russian soldiers were mostly illiterate peasants, mobilized by force. Many barely understood why they were fighting. Behind the German front, another force was preparing for war. The logistics machine was waking up. German artillery was also taking position. Heavy Krupp howitzers were deployed across the front. Russian artillery was lighter and faster, but the German guns were far more powerful. Russia possessed 2 enormous armies. Together they numbered more than 400,000 men. The margin for mistake was almost zero. One mistake, and East Prussia would fall. The Russian First Army was advancing towards Stallupönen. The commander of the German 8th Army, Maximilian von Prittwitz, ordered a retreat. From his headquarters near Gumbinnen, 30 kilometers behind the front, he learned that a major battle had already begun. He seized the telephone and shouted his order: fall back to Gumbinnen. At the front, Hermann von Francois refused. His answer was clear: I will withdraw only after defeating the Russians. The Russian army advanced carelessly. Their lines were wide, loose, unprepared. Francois set a trap. German units hid around the town. They waited. When Russian troops entered Stallupönen, the Germans opened fire from all sides. The attack was sudden, confusion spread. Artillery targeted the Russian right flank. Shells struck the streets. Russian infantry was trapped. They could not see where the fire was coming from. From the northern heights, German infantry charged into the exposed flank. Enfilade fire, striking the enemy line from the side and cutting through it completely. The Russian 27th Division collapsed inside the town. German forces closed in. Units pushed behind them, cutting them off from the main army. Thousands were captured. After the battle, François withdrew in good order toward Gumbinnen to rejoin the 8th Army. After the clash at Stallupönen, confidence spread through the German command. Hermann von François believed the Russians were weak. One more blow, and they would break. Even Maximilian von Prittwitz was convinced. A full attack was ordered near Gumbinnen, August 20th, 1914. At dawn, the Germans advanced. It was meant to be a night march followed by a surprise attack, but the troops had marched all night. They entered the battle exhausted. No proper reconnaissance, not enough artillery. In the centre, August von Mackensen pushed his men forward before the guns were ready. Ahead of them lay the Angarap River. The crossing became disorganized. Some units moved over the bridges, others entered the water, searching for shallow points. The formation broke apart. Men crossed in scattered groups, exposed, vulnerable. On the eastern heights, Fall von Rennenkampf had placed his artillery perfectly. When the Germans reached the river, the guns opened fire. Machine guns swept the riverbed from the side. Men in the water had nowhere to hide. In the north, François struck hard. The Russian flank bent, but did not collapse. In the centre, everything fell apart. Shells tore through the ranks. Units broke. Then panic spread. The German line began to collapse. To the south, the advance stopped. The attack was over. The Russian First Army held, exhausted, but unbroken. It was a clear victory. But Rennenkampf hesitated. He feared a trap. He did not pursue. At the same time, from the south, Alexander Samsonov advanced with the Second Army. Over 200,000 men were crossing into East Prussia. At headquarters, Maximilian von Prittwitz panicked. Two Russian armies, from two directions, encirclement. Max Hoffmann argued, retreat would be a disaster. Strike south. Prittwitz hesitated. Then he called Berlin. We are defeated. We cannot hold East Prussia. We must retreat to the Vistula River. In Berlin, Helmuth von Moltke made his decision. He rejected the retreat. Prittwitz was relieved of command. After the crisis in East Prussia, a new command took control. Paul von Hindenburg and Erich Ludendorff. On the train east, they studied reports from Max Hoffmann. Intercepted messages revealed the truth. The Russian armies were separated, a gap, wide and exposed. On August 24th, at Marienburg Castle, they made a decision. A dangerous one. The northern front would be left almost empty, only a thin screen in front of Paul von Rennenkampf. German cavalry spread out, moving, skirmishing, creating the illusion of strength. False radio reports followed. Rennenkampf saw activity, but not the truth. The main force was already moving south, by rail, fast. Their target, Alexander Samsonov and the Second Army, advancing blindly, exposed. It was a gamble. If Rennenkampf advanced, East Prussia would be open. But if it worked, one Russian army would be destroyed. In the south, Alexander Samsonov believed he was chasing a broken enemy, but he was walking into a trap. The German redeployment by rail had already taken effect. They knew the terrain. They used the dry roads. Cavalry and bicycle units moved behind the Russian lines. The circle was closing, silently. From August 24th to 26th, the Russian Second Army advanced deeper into East Prussia, through sand, through swamps, exhausted, hungry. The German retreat looked chaotic, but it was controlled. Units withdrew toward pre-selected rail points. Russian patrols found abandoned trenches, half-finished meals, forgotten papers, all pointing to one thing: retreat to the Vistula River. Then came the bait. German radio messages, sent in the clear, low ammunition, falling morale. Samsonov believed it. Ahead of him, German cavalry kept withdrawing, visible, untouchable, always out of reach. He followed, his own messages, also unencrypted. "We are pursuing." The Germans were listening. They knew his movements before he made them. They did not strike the center. They struck the flanks. From the west, Hermann von François attacked near Ustau. Artillery opened fire. The left flank collapsed. From the north, August von Mackensen drove south. Cavalry cut supply lines. The right flank broke. Retreat turned into flight. Now the trap was visible, but it was too late. In the center, Russian units kept advancing into empty space. On August 29th, the German forces met. The circle closed. Inside, over 150,000 men, trapped in forests, surrounded by swamps, no roads, no escape. The Germans did not dig in. They sealed the exits, roads blocked, bridges cut, barriers in the forest, machine guns placed every few hundred meters. Artillery surrounded the pocket, firing by map, grid by grid, an unseen enemy being destroyed. The forests of Tannenberg became a grave. Samsonov saw the end. That night, he walked into the forest, alone. A single shot broke the silence. Over 92,000 Russian troops fell into German captivity. While disaster unfolded at Tannenberg, the First Army stood still. Fall von Rennenkampf believed the Germans were still in front of him. But German cavalry had created an illusion. An army that was no longer there still seemed present. Recon units moved forward. Trenches, empty. No gunfire. Cities abandoned. Reports came in. The Germans are gone. Yakov Zielinski ordered Rennenkampf to push west and advance on Königsberg. Then came the signs. Distant artillery. From the south. Intercepted signals. The German army had moved. On August 28th, Rennenkampf turned south. Too late. When his scouts arrived, they saw only prisoners. Thousands marching west. The Second Army was gone. In September, Paul von Hindenburg and Erich Ludendorff turned north. At the first battle of the Masurian Lakes, Rennenkampf was struck hard. The Russian First Army was driven out of East Prussia. For Rennenkampf, it was the end. Removed from command. In 1918, he was executed.